at one point I was making like $250,000 a year profit just on that event. In the last year, we've helped well over 100 people to get their first board seats.
Can elaborate that maybe you are from the few people who run this book, especially in the industry.
Normally, investors are terrified about being exit liquidity for someone else, like the entrepreneur dumping their stock.
Be Yourself podcast. From my podcast, always I'm interested about the people journey, where they start, where they doing now, what they doing in the future. So most of the people, they see, okay, this is the glamorous people that are doing very well. But for me, always they say, okay, how their journey come up until here, what the struggle from there to this. This was my always the interest. From your side, because already first I met you through your book, first one. Yeah. After that, just I met you in person. Will be more interested. Thank you very much for the invitation last month. So I want to know more how the audience know about you, more about your journey, where you start from the beginning. Can you just give me a...
Yeah, sure. So, look, I was born in New Zealand, but I grew up in the UK. Came from a fairly poor background. So I think when I was about 9 or 10, I started doing little odd jobs, cleaning shelves in the local pubs, anything I could do to make some money. Car washing business when I was a kid. I had, basically any kind of hustle, paper rounds, anything I could do to make some cash. And I think that kind of started the entrepreneurial spirit. Then during the dot-com boom, I was a network engineer, so I was helping telcos in Europe to build out their IP networks, which was that was quite a lucrative place to be. And so I set up a business, kind of a recruitment consulting company, supplying network engineers to telcos. And so I did that with a partner. That was my first sort of grown-up business, and it went very well, which, I was probably 22, 23 at the time. And I thought it was going well because I was very talented and very good looking. And then, then the dot-com bubble burst and all the telcos ran out of money. And I realized I wasn't nearly as talented or good looking as I thought I was. And so that was kind of my first experience of proper entrepreneurship and success, and then a painful realization. And then about that time, or maybe a year or so afterwards, I actually moved out to Asia. When I was kind of exploring entrepreneurship, I'd been looking at the big global macro trends. So obviously technology is a huge trend. Aging demographics was an interesting trend. But the one that really stuck out to me was there was the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind going from west to east. So you remember like 25 years ago, everyone was talking about like Asia and this booming, the Asian tigers. And as a young entrepreneur, it kind of struck me that I would rather be on the receiving end of that transfer of wealth than on the giving end. So I moved out to Asia around 2001, 2002, and I've been here ever since. Now have an office in Dubai as well, so I'm over there fairly regularly, which is where we met. But all of the businesses so for the last 10 years, I've been buying and selling and rolling up companies and taking them public. And the companies we work with are all over the globe. So I think, kind of have a very global outlook. And then I guess the last 18 months, as well as my day job of bringing together companies and taking them public, I've also been very focused on helping women, minorities, and first-timers to get their first board seats. One of the things I kind of learned on my journey and sitting on a lot of boards was a lot of boards are fairly dysfunctional, and they often overlook very good talent because it doesn't look the right it's they come from the wrong schools, or they look a wrong way, or the wrong gender, or all of these stupid reasons. And so being on the inside, I realized that there's actually sort of some hacks that you can use if you come from the outside to get onto the inside. And so in the last year, we've helped well over 100 people to get their first board seats. And once you get on that board ladder, it's very easy to go up the ladder. It's just very, very difficult to get on the first step. So yeah, that's kind of that sort of brings us up to today.
Yeah. And you are from the few people already that changed my perspective, specifically in the business. When I read your book about the merger and acquisition, how to acquire business, I want to know from where you start. You have the mentor, or you just by mistaken you was in this journey?
So firstly, it was definitely by mistake. So what was that? So the first company that I acquired was actually a yacht regatta. I was running a business events, so networking and conferences and things in Bangkok in Thailand. And after one event, we just decided, just for fun, I would take all the team go-karting, and it was just supposed to be a fun event.
Okay.
But what happened was one of the sponsors heard about it and said, "Oh, can we come along as well?" And then another sponsor said, "Yeah, look, we'll do that, and if they're going to be there, we'll pay to have our logo there." And I was like, "Hang about!" And I actually made more money from the after event go-karting, which was a lot more fun than the conference. And so that kind of, I accidentally sort of started running these sports events. And then a yacht regatta approached me and said, "Would you be interested in buying the Koh Samui Yacht Regatta?" And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any time. I was flat out. So it was a clear no, but I thought, right, rather than saying no, let me go and find out kind of what's going on. And I remember sort of went down, met with them, kicked the tires a bit, and I realized that the money that they owed, which is why the founder wanted to leave, I could pull that money forward from one of the sponsors. There was like a six month window. So in effect, I could basically get one of the sponsors to pay for me to take over the running of the event. And I thought, well, this is quite cool. Like, even if I get nothing out of it other than...
I don't need any money to buy.
Yeah. But I also, like, if I just get the network of all these people that own yachts, I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to do. So I bought the yacht regatta, and then within the first year, I ended up signing quite a lot of sponsors, and ended up, at one point I was making like $250,000 a year profit just on that event. So, and that was my kind of first experience. And then I met Jeremy Harbour, who we met on the yacht. So I met Jeremy Harbour probably about 10 years ago, and he was teaching some very clever strategies for buying companies. Like, he had been doing it for a lot longer than me. Very, very creative ideas. And yeah, we just started, like, enjoyed each other's company, started working together. I helped him run a few events in Asia. And then about, when was it? So 2015, I think we sort of formally became business partners to do the agglomeration. We wrote that book, Agglomerate, together. And yeah, I've been having fun ever since.
You mentioned about the agglomeration. Most people, they heard about that, but they don't know about the concept behind it. Especially when you read the book, you will understand it, how we can explain with let's say the audience, the simple way how we can put the agglomeration together and they can go to the public, specifically this issue with the...
Well, I guess what Jeremy had figured out was that you have these great small businesses all around the world that are doing really cool things, that they're making money, that they're great little businesses, they're pillars of their community, but they're completely overlooked by investors. They're just not, they're too small for private equity, they're not exciting enough for venture capital, and they're too illiquid for anyone else to get into. And oftentimes the business owner doesn't actually want to leave, but they kind of get stuck and they don't know what to do. And entrepreneurs being entrepreneurs, if they get stuck, they start little projects on the side and get distracted. And so basically the idea was, okay, let's take these businesses and put them underneath a holding company. So we bring in these companies. It might be a construction company or an education company, boring old economy businesses, nothing sexy or exciting, but they generate cash. And the main difference is, so they swap their private stock for public stock in this holding company, but the key difference is the founder stays in control of their company. So it's still their brand, it's their hiring and firing, it's their culture. But now when they go and pitch for business, they're part of a global multinational. So it's much easier to win contracts. You basically can level the playing field with trying to recruit staff, because you can now offer stock options. And it's quite a lucrative way. And it's only really designed for founders that are still looking to grow the company. If they want to exit, it isn't a great exit, but it's a great way to grow the company if you're looking to grow it. So we now have versions of these all over the world, and are continuing to. We take groups public pretty much every quarter now, and then every month we're just putting businesses into that. And it's just it's a good solution for some of the problems that small businesses face.
You are focused in Pacific market to go public, let's say in Germany.
So we've found quite a nice market in Germany. So for the first few years, when you take a company public, people always talk about have liquidity and you've got to kind of do all of this sort of stuff. And that's what we did when we first started this model. We kind of followed best practice and we tried to get it on the biggest market possible and raise capital. And actually what happens is you end up your whole time and effort and energy just fighting, trying to get enough investors in and fighting with the share price, and it's a nightmare. So what we've done for the last year or so is we operate what we call a constrained stock model. So we list on a public market, but it doesn't really matter where the public market is. We take the smallest possible amount of free float, and then everybody else in the project is locked up for 5 years. Now, what that means is that when we talk to an investor and we say, hey, would you like to invest in this project? Normally, investors are terrified about being exit liquidity for someone else, like the entrepreneur dumping their stock. Now, they know that they're completely safe. Like there's a very small free float. It can only really go up because there's nobody there to sell. And so you basically have your first 5 years where you can just focus on bringing companies in. So you build the base of revenue and profit. You slowly increase the liquidity as investors are coming in, but you can basically keep the price going up until you get to sort of like $1 billion market cap. And then you kind of cross list onto bigger markets, and then you're open to all of the abuse that normally happens. But yeah, it's a very good model. It's great for investors. It's great for the small business owners because they don't have to kind of constantly worry about the share price, and yeah, it just keeps going up. So it's a nice model.
And part of that, you are focused, let's say, in Pacific industry, only in the construction or in the hospitality, or just bring all the company together?
Yeah, no, we're pretty relaxed on industry. We're more focused on finding good, well-run businesses, because we don't go in and fix them. So we're looking for companies that are well-run. The founders have got a good track record, and some of the groups are mixed. So we put together one group. We grew it to about $170 million in revenue that had construction, it had education, it had transport, logistics. But then we have other groups that are much more focused. So we'll have a group, so we've got one at the moment, which is just franchisors. We've got another one that we're listing shortly, which is just education companies. And there's kind of pros and cons to both. When you have just one industry, it's easier for investors to understand. But when you have multiple industries, you can kind of grow faster because you've got bigger choice.
And I know you are planning about you plan or maybe you finish your new book. Board member, how you can collaborate, that maybe you are from the few people who wrote this book, especially in the industry. Because most of them, when you say, okay, you are the board member, you have so many tasks to do, so many things. So how we can also, you simple the process and the task to the, let's say, the founder, or if you're just looking for the equity partner in each company.
Yeah, so it's finished. It comes out on April the 11th. So the book is called Boardroom Blueprint. And it's really about understanding the huge potential, for businesses. I think there's 330 million businesses in the world. Less than 1% actually have a board. So most small businesses don't have a board. And yet all of the successful companies in the world have boards. So it kind of tells you that there's something like, if every successful company has a board and you don't have a board, you're kind of missing out here somewhere. So basically we teach, like, for entrepreneurs, this is why you should have a board and this is how you set one up. And it doesn't need to cost money. Like at the beginning, you can just set up an advisory board. It can be completely free. But the book is also very focused on how anyone with drive and ambition can get their own board seat. So this is how you go and get a board seat with a company. And so the book talks about that. We talk about how you can do that within 60 days. You know, there's a lot of talk at the moment, has been for a number of years, around diversity. Is it important? Is it good? Is it bad? Where I think the conversation often gets lost with understanding. So everyone's been talking about saying boards should have diversity, but nobody really understands why boards aren't embracing it. And the reality is, especially public companies, if they hire someone that turns out to be disruptive, it's a very expensive decision. And if they hire you and you don't fit on the board, then they have to fire you, which makes them look incompetent and the share price goes down. And so what's happening is these boards are remaining super exclusive. It's all men. They all went to the same universities. They all went to the same schools. Even though they know diversity helps them make better decisions, they're too afraid of making the wrong decision. And so what we do in the book is we talk about how you can de-risk it for companies. So we talk about using an apprentice program to get into a board without it costing the company anything. How you build advisory positions, and just share some incredible case studies. And in fact, I did a webinar last night with one of our members, Rona, who's a Ranawati, who's a woman from Indonesia. She joined our program 12 months ago, and she's just accepted her 6th board position in the last year. And Nam, who originally came from Vietnam, he's now an auditor in Switzerland. He's also taken on 6 board positions in less than a year. We've got retirees, we've got people in their late 20s, early 30s. Yeah, there's it's this huge opportunity, and nobody's really talking about it because nobody that's got a board seat really wants to open this up to the wider market. Like, they quite like it being exclusive. They're making a lot of money. Yeah, why would you share the pool? Whereas my view is, hey, look, let's make a bigger pool. And look, also, you know, my core business is small business M&A. So if I can help a couple of thousand people to sit on a couple of thousand boards, then my job gets easier. So that's kind of where the focus is.
So if you see it is a huge market. Let's say if we are 100, maybe each 100 will be in different industry, will not compete in each other. Each one different board and in different industry, different experience. So why just keep it for yourself? Just opening just more, everybody will be more.
Exactly. And I think the other thing that people often, because it's been so exclusive, people think, oh, I could never do that. Like, people that sit on boards must be these superhuman business people that know everything and know everyone. And when you actually sit on a board, you realize, okay, some of these people probably shouldn't be here. Like, they're not actually that smart. But also, whatever, like, each one of us has a completely unique point of view. We have a completely unique story. We've got, our experiences, the people we know. And one of the things we talk about is think internationally, because you might be sitting there thinking, oh, look, I'm a 32-year-old IT consultant. Why would that be useful to a board? But if that company is looking to get into IT, you could have massive value to them. If you are based in Dubai, for example, if you apply for a board seat with a Dubai company, you're the same as everybody else. But if you get a board seat in America or in Europe or in Asia, well, suddenly you're very interesting, because now you've got contacts in Dubai. And so we can take things that to us are very normal and we don't perceive as very valuable, like where we live, but to somebody else,
you work on the different perspective to the company.
Exactly.
And also you bring your action from Dubai to the US to
exactly right. Yeah.
And also part of that, most of them, they see themselves maybe less, maybe I'm just part of this region, I cannot go abroad, or how I can market myself to be board member in the US or in another country.
Yeah, so in the book and in the program, we talk about these 5 key components that everyone needs to go through. And the first one is connections. So most of us, you're incredibly well connected, and I think you're very deliberate about building your connections. Most people aren't. Most people are very, they kind of are friends with who they went to school with and who they go into work with, and that's it. So if you want to get a board seat, you have to become very deliberate about connecting with investors, connecting with other directors. So that's the first piece. The second piece is knowledge. So you have your own knowledge, but you need to combine that with learning about the public markets, what investors want, so that kind of stuff. The third one is profile. And profile is really about amplifying everything that you do. So, on a podcast like this, it's a way for both of us to reach a new audience, so people find out more about what we're doing. And especially employees are often very nervous about building their profile. But in today's world, you are who Google says you are. Or in our world, you are who LinkedIn says you are. So you need to build a good profile on LinkedIn, and that's where other companies around the world start to notice you and say, oh, okay, well, this could be interesting. This person's doing some cool stuff. And then the fourth one is value. If you kind of follow that process, it's actually relatively easy to get your first board seat, but you want to be a good board member. There's enough bad board members out there. So you've got to figure out, how do you add value to that? And then the fifth one is leverage. And leverage is really about taking it to the next step. And I think lots of people are going to go, oh, great, I'm a board member. Right, now I can relax. Whereas so what we always say is, look, every board seat that you get is just a stepping stone to the next one. It's just think of everything, every connection you make, every bit of knowledge, it's all just a stepping stone to the next piece. And so it's kind of like an upward spiral where you're going back. Every time you do it, you get new connections, new knowledge, you build your profile, more value, more leverage. And so it kind of just keeps going up and up.
I think the book already now is already published, or just?
So it depends when this podcast comes out, but yeah, any day now, basically. So yeah, be on Amazon, and but if you go to the website boardroom-blueprint.com, you might still be able to get a free copy.
We'll put some link here also, the audience. And before we finish, where the audience can reach you, can social media or the website, can explain that.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. So if you just do a search for Callum Lang, I think I'm the only one. I'm one of the noisiest Callum Langs anyway. And connect. If you do connect with me, mention this podcast so I know to accept you, because I get quite a lot of requests. And I have a YouTube channel where I share a lot of information as well. So if you do a search for Callum Lang on YouTube, you'll find that.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the information. I think the audience will be benefit from that, and we can see you soon and drink something in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm back early May, so let's catch up then.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.
Great.